Triumph Scrambler 1200X and XC. Some of you are gonna say, wait a second, didn't they call it the XC in the past? And you're gonna be right. Yes, up until 2023, we had the XC model available. Over at Triumph, what they do is ask their clients what they want. And by doing so, they found out that many a customer actually thought the two models to be too closely linked to each other. Some had a few problems with the suspension travel and the seat height. Others have said that the mono shock, the Öhlins shock, in all of its adjustability is way too much, is basically overkill, and that the adjustability of the front suspension also wasn't really necessary, and that in reality they actually wanted a stronger 900, that they wanted a stronger 900cc Scrambler. That's why they came out with this base model called X, which is gonna succeed the old XC. Alright, so what do we have here? We have a small TFT screen derived from the Trident 660. Now we have Nissin brakes, no more Brembo brakes, and they are 310 millimeters in size, no more 320 millimeters, and a Marzocchi front fork, which is not adjustable and has 45 millimeters of diameter. The rear shock is adjustable only in its preload and comes with 170 millimeters of travel, which is the same that the front fork offers. With these changes, they made the bike way more accessible with a seat height of 820 millimeters, which you can reduce further, reaching 795 millimeters with a aftermarket seat. Therefore, we have the least tall 1200cc Scrambler Triumph has ever made. The same engine can also be found in the XC. The engine produces 90 horsepower at 7,000 RPM and 110 Newton meters of torque at 4,250 RPM. So just a tiny fraction earlier in comparison to the old engine. Obviously, the engine follows the Euro 5B homologation standards, so it's definitely no problem there. We have a very reasonable bike here. In the past, in 2018, when reviewing the 1200, we found that it's the least reasonable bike you can buy on the market. Let's focus on the Triumph Scrambler 1200X for a moment. In comparison to the XC, you have all of the electronics of the XE. The only thing missing is the Off-Road Pro riding mode. So in total you have 5 riding modes. Cornering ABS, traction control, which is gonna activate based on your lean angle and which can easily be set through your TFT screen. The user interface is really easy to use, as well as all the buttons, and yeah, they're very intuitive to use. At the beginning, I doubted the ability of these Nissin brakes because they're basically a step back from the old Brembo brake system, but I found that, like on the Africa Twin, the Nissin brakes work great. They have set the fork with its 170 millimeters of travel so that you would have the best possible ride on the road, not off-road. And I have to say, they did a great job. This is a great on-road bike with which you can obviously go off-roading for a bit at least, nothing too crazy, and obviously less than with its sister, the XE, which features a suspension travel of 250 millimeters. When using the off-road riding mode, you deactivate the ABS of the rear brake. With its 170 millimeters of suspension travel, you still have lots of suspension travel and even more than on some adventure bikes on the market, to be honest. So I'm very happy with the performance of these brakes on road and off-road. Yes, it is true that some of the components now are cheaper, and yeah, still, I have to say, if it's the client himself that says to Triumph, listen, this is what we want, then it makes sense for Triumph to change direction. You also have a few aesthetic changes on these bikes. The small headlight and the small TFT screen make the bike a really rather slim, I have to say. The ergonomics are way more appropriate now for smaller riders. For me, the XE is more comfortable because I am 187 centimeters tall, so that's over 6 foot, and therefore the 5 centimeters of seat height more makes a difference for me. The foot pegs of the X are higher in comparison, and the bike comes with Metzeler Karoo tires. The tire dimensions are 1990 21 inch in the front and 1570 17 inch in the back, so you can also opt for more hardcore enduro oriented tires. The bike gets a better gas mileage in comparison to its older version. However, we didn't check that, so I can't say anything to that. Another thing that many people speak about when talking about the 1200X is that your right leg is going to be exposed to a lot of heat. Today we have about 23 degrees Celsius, but so there's no real problem. But I remember in the city, oftentimes I had to do the good old Captain Morgan, as we call it. Otherwise, you would have burned your leg. I'm gonna be honest, I don't have a lot of experience in off-roading, but thanks to the helpful Triumph staff, I managed to make a few turns here and there, and I have to say, I found myself pretty comfortable on this bike. The bike weighs 228 kilos and is way too beautiful to drop, so at the beginning I did have my doubts, but then I felt at home pretty quickly. The handlebars are pretty wide and the bike has a lot of torque, being a 1200cc engine, and then with this longer swing arm on the XE version you have even more traction, which works fantastically. On the XE you have the Michelin Anarchy Wild, a great tire, and on the road going version of the XE you have the Metzeler Torrens, a tire that actually already has 2 successors, so I don't really know why you would ever choose that tire, but whatever. Apart from that, I don't have anything to say. On the contrary, the Marzocchi front fork works great, as well as the shock, and on the road I felt like a king on his throne. Thanks to the suspension of these two bikes, I didn't feel the imperfections of the road here in Malaga, all the more on the XE version. On the X, however, I felt them a bit more, but still nothing really to critique. This is no critique. The TFT screen is very beautiful to look at, and the brushed fender also looks very good on the XE. On the X, however, you get a normal plasticky looking fender. Let's talk about the price. This bike is gonna cost you from 15,000 euros for the X version in the EU and 16,600 euros for the XE. In the UK, you're gonna pay 13,300 for the XE version and almost £12,000 for the X version. In the US, you will pay $14,000 for the X version and $15,300 for the XE version. I would opt for the XE, and I would advise anyone to buy the XE model, except if you have problems due to its seat height or if you say you really never go off-road, so in that case you should opt for the X version instead. Due to the new bike having the cheaper components, one could also say, wait a second, what if I grab one of the remaining last models of the last generation, so of the XC version, at a reduced price? Obviously, you don't get a few things such as the IMU or the LED turn lights or the new headlight. But anyways, I think it's worth a consideration. All in all, I am very happy with these bikes. The X will be available in gray, red and black. The XE will be available in gray, black and a special color scheme, which would be this orange-black one. So, answering the question, is this bike still an unreasonable bike to buy? I have to say yes, up until a point. And here I want to cite one of the Triumph instructors that was here with me. He said, imagine an enduro bike with two 600cc engines in the frame of one bike, and then you will have the 1200 XE. And with that statement, I will conclude this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments down below if you would opt for the 1200 XE or if you would choose the old 1200 XC. Thank you very much and see you soon.